Hey, welcome to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business. New episodes each weekday morning, 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com. And please connect with us all across social media. Find us on facebook.com/thatbusinessshow. Also on Twitter at thatbizshow. That's the handle there where we keep all the tweets flowing. And speaking of tweets, I want to speak about Donald Trump this past week. From time to time, we'll go off topic here on the business program and talk about stuff that's current and in the news. And this past week, Donald Trump taken to Twitter to announce the banning of transgender people from the military. So first off, we got to get Donald Trump off of Twitter. I joked yesterday, once this guy discovers Hootsuite, then we're never going to hear the end of his tweets. Hootsuite being a program where you can pre-plan all of your tweets to go out at whatever time of day that you want, as often that you want. So let's hope that Donald Trump doesn't discover Hootsuite, but it's only a matter of time before he discovers this. But let's talk a little bit more, about Donald Trump in the past 6 months that he's been on the grand stage as our president, from somebody who is really middle of the road. I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, I'm somebody who doesn't like drama, I don't like to feed drama, I don't buy into any of that stuff. I'm more of a libertarian at heart, but at the end of the day, I'm somebody who really wants to help other people and do good by our society. I'm not somebody who has any particular agenda other than to help others and to basically just live a calm, basic life. But Donald Trump epitomizes all of what drama entails. He is somebody who seeks out drama. He's somebody who seeks out dissension amongst the people. He is not somebody who's really a champion of all people. And so he makes a campaign promise to take care and protect the LGBTQ community during his campaign, and then destroys that entire message this past week with a tweet. Now, I can understand if he wants to have a discussion about transgender in the military. I'm not saying I agree with that. I believe that all people who want to fight for and defend our country, regardless of sexual orientation or gender, can do so. Why would you not want people to defend the country? The more, the better. But the manner in which he is doing it was, something that just shows his complete lack of caring for due diligence and the process, by going to Twitter with a tweet and then ending it with a nice little thank you. One of the comedians on Late Night joked he is the most polite way of discriminating against people, simply saying, "Please be advised, transgender people no longer allowed in the military. Thank you very much." It's like a school announcement or something over the PA system. So this type of stuff belongs in House. It belongs in the Congress. It belongs in front of the people to have a discussion. I understand he's commander-in-chief, and as commander-in-chief of the military, he can put out orders. He can do whatever, I guess, that he wants. I don't know really what, procedural measures are supposed to, take place when it comes to, military protocols. We just overcame, the gays in the military with the rollback of the don't ask, don't tell policy that was put in place by Bill Clinton in the early 90s to allow openly gay people in the military. But they're probably who's next. They're probably the openly gay people who are going to have to either go back to don't ask, don't tell, or they'll be expelled from the military. You give this 3 or 4 years, the country is probably going to have a much different look than what we saw under the administration of Barack Obama. But the use of Twitter has become a presidential tool, and it's really an unprofessional and sad way of communicating to the public. And so I think that's where a lot of the disdain and a lot of the shock and disapproval came from yesterday when he decided to release his tweet about transgender people in the military. And we're already seeing challenges from people within this community. Also, Caitlyn Jenner, I always want to say Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, who was a supporter of Donald Trump during his campaign, obviously condemning the tweet and, asking him where is his loyalties lie. Can we believe anything that he says? This is a person who I voted for. I'll be honest, I voted for Donald Trump, but I voted for him along the capacity of a business person running the country. I've always wanted to see somebody with business acumen leading our country versus somebody with political acumen. but he is getting into public office and has basically taken the bully approach to civic governance. And so this has created a firestorm amongst politics, amongst the people, and it's only going to end up poorly. It's my prediction that Donald Trump can't last 8 years. I don't know if he can even survive the 4 with the way that he is going. It just is going to take one political leader to upset him the wrong way, and he's going to start war with these countries. North Korea, for instance, has me very concerned because of what's going on in the country. And Donald Trump is somebody who can't be pushed around without fighting back. He does not have the ability to let things roll off of him. And so anytime anybody insults him, he has to fire back. And it's not a trait that a politician can have. So again, I'll admit I was excited to see somebody of business acumen reach the White House, and that was my reason for voting for him. But to vote for him now, I would not. I do not support the way that he behaves. He behaves very unpresidential and very unpolished. Now, it's my hope that what we will lose in social and civic areas, we will gain in economic areas through improved business practices and the cutting of debts and the increases of jobs. And we're already beginning to see that. It's coming at the expense of some of the regulations and some of the environmental policies to bring back manufacturing jobs into the country. And so there is going to be a trade-off to that in that capacity. But that's something we have to accept, and we always have to kind of just let the pendulum sway, let it go so far one way and pull it back the other way. And that's kind of the beauty of the two-party system that we have, is that each one is kind of at odds with one another, but they allow each one to kind of go so far one way and then pull it back in the other, pull it back in from the other direction. And so it's important to give and to take. And so we see this with Donald Trump and his relaxing of the not going along with the Paris Accord, the environmental agreement. And so we're seeing a lot of return in manufacturing, the coal industry, all the stuff that's going to pollute the environment and lead to global warming is going to be in play over the next at least 4 years, whether or not Donald Trump will last these 4 years. Nonetheless, the Democrats aren't exactly organized, and they've lost a lot of political seats, governorships, and House seats, Senate seats. They are not in any means right now or any capacity to even challenge for leadership of the country. And they were a growing brand over this last 7 or 8 years up until this past election, which really shell-shocked many within the Democratic Party. But nonetheless, Donald Trump's lack of professionalism, his lack of presidential prowess is really embarrassing to the country. I can only imagine what people in far-off lands are looking at us and shaking their heads. But he has such a vendetta or a beef against the media, and I think this just comes from his days as an entrepreneur, as a developer, and then ultimately as a television celebrity, and so many people talking about him, that he developed a disdain for the media to the extent that his presidency is going to be about making the media look bad. We've already heard him use the term fake news on every single occasion. He goes to Twitter because he says it bypasses the fake news and it's an unfiltered form of communication with the public. But he has put impediments in front of the media that are frankly a little bit worrisome. I mean, taking the cameras out of the press secretary's office, not communicating with certain networks. He is somebody who has the mindset of a dictator. Fortunately, I'm not worried about him becoming the next oppressor by any means. We have a checks and balances system, a three-tiered government system that would protect against anything such as that. But that just goes to show right now the value of having the checks and balances system. We've already seen the checks already being used against him with his implementation or his attempt to implement the travel ban, and how the judicial wing of the government has shut that down. Of course, he keeps trying to implement that. But it's good that we have a checks and balances system with the legislative, the judicial, and the executive branches of the government. We look and see how he's now currently bullying Jeff Sessions, his attorney general, who he appointed and who was one of his most staunchest allies. So look how Donald Trump can easily turn on somebody when he doesn't like who they are and how they behave. And he is acting in the capacity of a business owner and not a politician. And so because Jeff Sessions didn't do what he wanted to do and didn't behave the way he wanted him to behave, he is going to work to oust him. I mean, he could just fire him, but he's trying to get him to resign. Regardless, my point is that he is trying to force him out the same way that a business owner would get rid of somebody, one of their leaders in business. But unfortunately for Donald Trump, all this stuff now is on the grand scale in front of the media, and he's not able to do this the way that a business owner could, behind closed doors with his upper management or his board of directors. So Donald Trump, has really, let a lot of the country down over this past 6 months, in my opinion. No major political victories. Still struggling to produce a health care bill. Still talks about his election win at every one of his speeches. He is a textbook narcissist, somebody who is completely in love with himself and his accomplishments to the point that he has to constantly barrage people with just gloating about himself. And so all of this stuff just is a disaster on the presidency in this first 6 months. I can only hope that in the next 6 months and in a couple of years that he begins to improve his presentation and his presidential abilities, and he just needs to become more polished, and we need to get him off of Twitter. It's embarrassing to see an announcement like the banning of the transgender population from the military being put out on a tweet. That's something I think history will judge very poorly. That type of stuff needs to go through discussion through the House, through the Senate, and through the general public for discussion as well, not as a tweet on Twitter. So we've got another segment when we come back from the break. You're listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business. Welcome back to That Business Show 2.0. I'm Jamie Meloni, your host. New episodes each weekday morning, 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com, where we talk with a variety of different business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals about their businesses, their stories, their successes, and their failures. If you'd like to come onto the program, tbsinterview.com will show you how to come onto the program. Always looking for content from a variety of different business owners and all levels of success and failure. We don't just interview the top of the tier or top of the business world. We want to hear from people in all capacities of business, because we know our listeners and our viewers are in various levels of business too, and so we want to hear from others in our same peer group. We don't want to just hear from the person who is crushing it in business, and yes, we want to be that person, but we also understand that there's so many more like us out there who are just struggling in business and we can just kind of say, you know what, I know what you're going through. And so that's what this show is all about. It helps to inspire, it helps to motivate, and also helps to console many business owners with the struggles and the stresses of being an entrepreneur. tbsinterview.com for information on how to come on the program, and keep an eye on thatbusinessnetwork.com. A lot of new updates coming to the site each and every week. On today's program, doing some solo commentary on the Donald Trump presidency in light of his new executive order issued via a tweet, which was a first nonetheless. But just want to kind of get back to this whole political environment that we are in. One of the problems that we have in our political system is that people have learned or have forgotten how to think for themselves, and this has to do with the 24-hour news cycle. The CNN days are over. Now it's CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, CNBC, a variety of different news outlets that are running media 24/7. Up until the 90s, it was your evening news. You had Walter Cronkite in the 60s and 70s. Dan Rather, Peter Jennings. That was the evening news up until the 80s and into the 90s. And then CNN came on scene in the 90s. Ted Turner putting out the first 24-hour news network, and that was really kind of the beginning of what I consider this current political season that we've come to be in. It's just this idea that these political or these news channels went away from being news channels to being commentaries or basically, political backing machines. You can only put out so much news in a day before you've got to start going to commentary and opinions, and you can't call yourself news in that in that capacity. That is an opinion-based show, and they need to differentiate in the media between opinion and between news, because a lot of people hear that news, and they take a lot of this opinion as fact and news, and it distorts and it twists people's mind, and it really distorts and hurts the political environment that we're in, and it puts people at odds to one another. And so with MSNBC, with Fox News, we started to see a development in the 24-hour news cycle to the point that they had to compete with one another. And so they had to then begin issuing more shows that was catered to their niche audience. And so CNN in the early days was a great network. I mean, it's still a good network. I know it gets it's had its flaws over the last couple of years, and some poor reporting in this past presidential cycle. I think just some people making some bad decisions in response to Donald Trump, which has led to CNN being in the news a couple of times with some inaccurate stories. But what the 24-hour news has done is it's created like a team environment amongst people politically. You got MSNBC that's on the left, you got Fox News, which is on the right. CNN used to be semi-neutral, but now they're on the left too, and so it's just Fox News that is out there. And what we have is people that are now team players for team right or team left. It doesn't matter how bad or how good your particular team is doing, you're going to root for them no matter what the cause. And so it is this independent or this non-thinking that is existing within our culture now, that is leading to a divide in our society, and it's unfortunate, and it's being fueled by 24-hour news networks. That's why it's important to open up your sphere of influence to other listening mediums that are out there. Podcasts are an excellent source of alternative information. You're going to hear from real people who have real ideas and who's not distorted by sponsors and the political reins that so many people are tied to. So take some time and listen to some of the podcasts that are out there. Stay off of the 24-hour news networks that are dividing our society. It's unfortunate, because I do not remember this being this way when I was a kid. I grew up in the 80s when Ronald Reagan was president. He had his turbulent times. The 90s with Bill Clinton, of course, he had his turbulent times. But it really wasn't until probably George Bush went into office that we started to see this divide grow amongst the society. And if we don't cure it over the next few years, it's only going to further weaken society, because society divided is a society that can be conquered. And if we don't conquer ourselves, it's going to be conquered by another country who takes advantage of the political divide that exists in our country. We've already got places like California wanting to break off from the union. We've already got Texas, people down there who want to break off from the union. We see it happening. We in America think that all that doesn't happen. We live in this bubble in America where turmoil and turbulence only exists to a point. It can never go past the breaking point. But yet we see over in Europe with the Brexit example that countries and people do revolt, and they do pull out of agreements, they do pull out of unions. And so as America begins to fracture, which is the long-term effect of the dynamic that we are in right now, it's going to weaken the culture. It's going to open us up for invasion of other cultures, other ideas, and ultimately other rulers. So it's important that we learn to work together with people, and we learn to accept other ideas, and that we don't just vote along party lines. Both parties have great ideas. Both parties have excellent people, but so many people will only vote for people if they put an R or a D beside their name, and they'll only vote along those party lines. Meanwhile, if someone like myself wanted to run for office, and I would call myself a libertarian, I don't have a chance in hell of getting elected because I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. So ask yourself, why wouldn't you vote for somebody in a Libertarian Party? And why wouldn't you vote for somebody in the Green Party or an independent? Well, you're probably saying, well, because they don't have a chance to win. 50% of people out there have that mentality. And so if you could just overcome that one flaw inside of your thinking, imagine how much different our political landscape would look. So it's important that you take the time to listen to people of alternative viewpoints, of people that do not have an R or a D beside their name, and listen to people that are not driven by political motivations and aspirations and ultimately big business or money. It's what it all boils down to. That's why you never see people of ordinary upbringings, of ordinary capacity, running for political office, because they know that they're going to get crushed by people inside of the media and inside of their own political circles. And so it takes a certain person to even want to even try that. And so that's another area that I wanted to mention, is that don't be so critical of people when they decide to run for office. We don't need crystal clear individuals running for office, because look at all the scrutiny, what it's produced. So why are we behaving that way? Just because the person has a DUI, he can't be elected public office. Just because the person, has a couple business failures, he's no longer, a candidate for public office, or that person had a sexual harassment claim against them, no, he can't run for office. All these things are minor inconveniences for people to run for public office. And we look for these people that are squeaky clean. And I'll tell you, the people that are perfectly squeaky clean know how to hide all of their flaws. That's the only difference. So why are you voting for these people? And look what it is producing. So give it a chance, give people a chance that are not Republicans and that are not Democrats to hold office. I myself am a registered Republican, but I'm more down the road, more middle of the road, but I would never call myself a libertarian if I ever decided to run for office, because I won't win. It's hard enough to run as an outsider in business, in politics to begin with. But the next time that you look on a ticket and you're thinking about who to vote for, and you say, this person doesn't have a chance, even though I like what they're saying, but I'm going to vote for this person because I just want to be on that winning team, that's a flaw in your personality. That is not good. You should be voting for the person whose beliefs and views you agree with. Listen to the common sense. Don't just judge somebody because the media is against them. All that stuff has business and lobbyists behind it that is trying to get you to direct your vote over to their major political party candidate. There's so much common sense that is not being marketed out there today that it is beyond me. Our healthcare debacle is a perfect example of this. We can't produce a healthcare plan that works, but yet we're trying to solve the problem, but we're not even attacking the source of the problem. Not one politician has even talked about preventative measures. It's all about fixing the problem after it's already occurred. So where is the talk about implementing health programs inside of our elementary schools? Where's the talk of putting gyms and fitness facilities and incentives in our businesses to get them to exercise and fight off these problems before they develop to the point that they are? You don't hear any of that stuff because they lack common sense. They're all pressured by lobbyists to do what they say to do. But it amazes me with the talk of healthcare, and nobody ever talks about those basic preventative measures. Better health education and physical fitness programs with our youth. And I'm talking about real physical education, not where you play wiffle ball and half the people stand on the side of the wall like I grew up with in my physical education classes. And also fitness facilities inside of large employers with incentives to offer to people to actually use the gyms. And I worked at a facility for 5 years who had a facility on site. I went there almost every shift for about a half an hour, got on the treadmill or got on the elliptical machine and used it. So those types of preventative measures will begin to cure the long-term problem, which is healthcare. I understand we have a huge glut with the baby boomers coming through that we have to solve, but nobody talks about that common sense about preventing what is causing the current problem. So again, you got to wrap up this program. Think for yourselves. Don't allow the media or anybody else to drive what it is that you believe, and give people a chance that otherwise don't fit the common mold of what you're used to. You've been listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business.